Shalom. Welcome to Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman. I'm joined in the studio today by Mark Finkelstein of the Jewish Community Relations Commission for the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines. And we will be joined on Skype in a few minutes by Carl Wilkins, who will be sharing with us his story about Rwanda, staying behind in Rwanda. Excuse me, my nose was about to sneeze there. And all his work in saving hundreds of orphans and other children in Rwanda during the genocide. An absolutely wonderful person. We also work together in our efforts to help the people of Sudan combat genocide in that country. And so hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit about combating genocide in other places around the world as well. The big topic that's going on this week is the continuing ratcheting up of tensions in North Korea with South Korea. And while there are certainly lots of jokes about the leader of North Korea sending his Transformer toys to the border to fight, and people wanting to give him a Snickers bar so he can turn in from the mad tyrant to the guy who did Gangnam Style. The jokes are good, but the situation really isn't. And we try to make light of situations through our humor. This is a situation that is not very light, and we really are concerned that hostilities could break out. The United States has sent a significant amount of military assets into the region to use in a potential conflict. South Korea has dramatically increased its military awareness. North Korea is basically on full alert, and the problem with that kind of situation is very little could happen and tip it over into actual combat. So we hope that cooler heads will prevail, and the situation in North and South Korea and the border region there will be much better we talk next week. The situation in the Middle East regarding Syria and Iran remains unchanged. There really is not much of any information that has come up. And the big information, really, the big news this week really is that it seems that there is a push to try to get some sort of negotiations off the ground from the perspective of the United States, working with Israel. The possibilities still appear to be relatively limited as far as how that's going to go. There's now even more turmoil in the Palestinian Authority, with Salam Fayyad evidently tendering his resignation over some conflict about a deputy advisor or something along those lines. And so that situation clearly would have to be resolved before the Palestinian Authority could even negotiate, because even negotiate with Western representatives, because the Western representatives really have more confidence in Salam Fayyad than they have in the rest of the Palestinian Authority leadership. So we are in a situation where there's lots of different things that we could talk about, and we will be talking about them in the next few weeks. We have a wonderful article that I'd love to share with you if we have some time later on in the show, from Ahmed Hashimi, who wrote that anti-Semitism is why the Arab Spring failed. It's a great article that's found in the Times of Israel. If we don't get to it today, I hope that you will take some time and look it up. And the interesting situation here is, and the sad situation here is really that as the Arab world is finding more freedom from tyranny, they're also finding more opportunity to espouse anti-Semitism and in the guidelines of theocracy. And the Islamism that has risen in the region not only is impacting places like Sudan, where there's ongoing genocide, but it's becoming more and more to impact the lives of Arab citizens throughout the region. We'll talk more about that in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you. That's the world in 5 minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Shalom. Welcome back to Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman. I'm joined in the studio by Mark Finkelstein of the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines. And we're going to be joined shortly by Skype by Carl Wilkins. Carl Wilkins, as a humanitarian aid worker, moved his family to Rwanda in the spring of 1990. When the genocide was launched in 1994, Carl refused to leave, even when urged by his friends, his family, his church, and the United States government. Most all of the United States citizens left the country. Carl was the only one left. And he went out each day into the streets filled with mortars and gunfire, working his way through roadblocks and all kinds of other problematic things that were going on there, bringing food, water, and medicine to groups of orphans trapped around the city. His actions saved the lives of hundreds of people. Carl returned to the United States in 1996 after being featured in the 2004 PBS Frontline documentary Ghosts of Rwanda about the Rwanda genocide, and he began to receive all kinds of inquiries to have him speak and other things. In January of 2008, with no end in sight to the ongoing genocide in Darfur, Carl decided to quit his job and dedicate himself full-time to accepting these invitations. He and his wife, Teresa, have since formed an educational nonprofit, World Outside My Shoes, to facilitate this important work. And it's an honor to have Carl Wilkins join us by Skype this morning. Hello, Carl. How are you?
Morning, Dave. How are doing well, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. I think we need to get our headphones on here. Just a second.
Well. All right. The sun is just coming up here in San Diego. It's a gorgeous morning. I hope you've got nice weather wherever you are.
Well, we have cold and overcast skies today.
Yeah, nice is not how I would describe it here in Des Moines, but I'm glad it's wonderful in San Diego. I think that's part of why people live in San Diego.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I asked them yesterday, is it always like this? And they said, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I can see it looks like it's glowing behind you. So we're looking forward to having you come to Iowa on April 20th as well, and having you speak at the Temple April 20th at 7:30 p.m. That's Temple B'nai Jeshurun 5101 Grand for those in Des Moines, for those who are interested in coming. But tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I fell in love with Africa as a college kid. I had a great service learning program and went to the Transkei in South Africa in the 70s and came back, married this beautiful woman who said, I'll go anywhere. And we spent 6 years in Zimbabwe, Zambia, you know, right out of college. Our daughters were born there. And then we got this opportunity to work in Rwanda. In 1990, we moved to Kigali. With the Adventist Development Relief Agency, as you mentioned there in the introduction, building schools. 6 months after we got there, a war started, went on for 3 years. Our work shifted a bit to include all the displaced people who were being chased out of their homes by the war. And then we came what we thought was going to be an end and a new beginning in Rwanda with this war over, Arusha Peace Accord. But there was a small group of people who said, you know, we will never share power. And there was the beginning of this horrific genocide that engulfed the country there in '94. And
what was it like to be alone as a Westerner during the genocide? I have difficulty imagining what it would be like to be behind the lines and to do that kind of work during a genocide. And what was it like with the orphans and the children and having to go through roadblocks with food? And how come you were able to do that, that people didn't go after you as well?
Well, there were times that they did threaten to kill me, but that wasn't most of the time, fortunately. Let's see, to be left alone, I never felt alone. There were actually 10 of us easily identifiable foreigners, 5 Catholic Sisters of Charity from Spain, 2 Catholic fathers, German Frenchmen, another Frenchman who stayed with his orphans, and a Swiss man with the Red Cross, Philip Gaillard. But aside from those few foreigners, I mean, yeah, there were 6,000 or 7,000 before, but aside from them, you know, Africa had been our home for 10 years. And so our colleagues were there, friends were there, neighbors, of course, still there. We'd been living there for 4 years already. Our kids have been playing with the neighborhood kids. So I think, you know, never really alone. But then in terms of being able to do something during this horrible time, it really came down to relationships. When I was talking with some students here at San Diego State University last night, guy spent 8 years in the Marines, and he's asking me, you know, come on, how just your presence, how could that really, you know, make it happen? Because I'm sure he's thinking from a military mindset. You know, you got to have a strategy, you got to have all the different things in place, logistics and huge amount, you know, to be able to have a successful mission. And, you know, I just kind of shook my head and I said, it was really about relationships with the people who were in charge. Formed a relationship with the guy who was in charge of the city. He's in prison now for genocide, crimes against humanity, be there for the rest of his life. Relationships with guys at the roadblocks, guys to, you know, find some powdered milk at the market and ask this little lady who's selling, you know, where'd you get that? I need 100 times that. And she would connect me with usually a soldier and a civilian who had a stash of stolen powdered milk, and I'd make a deal with them. It was just relationships.
Mark has a question.
Hi, Carl. Carl, can I ask you, the nature of the people you met there, were you in the middle of 2 different ethnic groups to begin with, or?
I'm really glad you asked, because a lot of times when people try to get their, you know, hands around a situation that's foreign to us, you're trying to figure out who's who and what labels apply and stuff. And people heard Hutu as the majority, Tutsi as the minority. But in reality, in Rwanda, they married each other by the thousands. I mean, it was so typical for a person with one ID card to marry someone with the other ID card, and then their kids are going to have the ID card of their dad. And so there really weren't these huge differences that a lot of people like to explain there. In fact, I honestly, many of my neighbors, colleagues, I didn't know if they had a Hutu ID card or Tutsi ID card before the genocide, for many of them. So this was really a politically driven event that you know, won't go into all the history, but that worked to construct an enemy, and for them the target worked best for, you know, various reasons, as the politicians were being threatened by the Rwandan Patriotic Front, which was mostly Tutsi, and then even other Hutu parties threatened them. So this genocide was their solution to get rid of the threat, both all of the Tutsis and any moderate Hutus who didn't go along with their extremist ideology.
Carl, were there any external groups of people, whether neighboring countries or the United States or other major powers, who had an influence on either of the parties involved?
Oh, absolutely. The government of France had long-term relationships, economic, political, social relationships with the people of Rwanda. You know, I feel like in so many crises around the world, we've got to ask the question you just asked, you know, who are their partners? Who has influence with them? And without a doubt, the French and the Belgian, I mean, it had been a Belgian colony, but France over the years too had started to play a more major role, to the extent that they were training the Rwandan military. At the beginning of the war, it was French artillery that just really nearly destroyed the Rwandan Patriotic Front. So without a doubt, that was a significant relationship that could have been used to stop the genocide. And then the United Nations was already in the country. And so, you know, after World War II, the whole world is saying, you know, this should not happen. Never again should families be slaughtered like this. And we all sign on, you know, a convention there at the UN. And now we've got this genocide erupting in Rwanda. We've got 2,500 UN soldiers on the ground, and we vote to take them out, which is not just a simple vote, but it is a simple reality that we had enough soldiers on the ground to have stopped this in the first days, and we voted to withdraw them.
You know, what parallels, this is Rabbi Kaufman, what parallels do you see with what's going on in Sudan? I know we do a lot of work in what went on in Darfur, and I read earlier in your bio that you saw what was going on in Darfur and you decided to devote yourself to this kind of work. What do you see as a parallel between what went on in Rwanda, what's going on in Darfur? And I'm particularly interested in the world's response. You know, I have to say, one of the questions that I asked my confirmation students, my 10th grade students this week as we were studying the Holocaust, is when we say never again, what does that mean? What does that obligate us to do as opposed to just say? If we just say it, it doesn't mean much. What do we have to do to make that mean something?
Yeah. You know, Darfur is a genocide been going on there for nearly 10 years. Some people say kind of like Rwanda, but in slow motion. Each place is obviously unique and different, and innocent people are caught up in the struggle of political powers vying for power, you know. But in terms of our response, what we can do, you know, nobody really loves this word responsibility except to throw it at somebody else. You know, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. So I ask that we cut the word in half and turn it around. Ability to respond, and then we start thinking about what is our role, what is our gifts, what are our abilities. Whether it's something with the social media. And we need to help educate people on the stories. And we're putting a link on our Facebook page, and we're sharing, or we're making a video clip with friends, or you know, we're helping to get the story out there. That's something that has happened with Darfur, but did not you know, happen that much with Rwanda. We're definitely getting a much much broader response in Darfur, but it's still, nowhere near what we need because it's been going on for 10 years. And so, it's easy to say never again is meaningless. And I would say, wait, we need to stop and look, what happened to Ivory Coast here a while back, a couple of years ago in Kenya, down in Zimbabwe. Are there times that that genocide has been stopped? I really do think it has happened. But those times when it has happened have been when I think it's a concerted effort, grassroots movements together with high-level government leaders making it a priority and physically flying to the place, putting their feet on the ground, making that physical presence known that has made a difference. I've been really encouraged by the student movement. It's rising and kind of falling at times and rising again as kids graduate and come into school and stuff. But STAND, the student movement against genocide, the Enough Project, and other student, Enough isn't all student, but other projects, they are making a difference. They're giving us opportunities. The question is now, will we engage? When the ability to respond is there, whether it's with conflict minerals in the Congo, and paying attention what company we buy our laptop or cell phone from, or whether it is, an advocacy campaign on Capitol Hill, tools are there. 1-800-GENOCIDE, that's a tool that's there. Anybody can call that number and their voice can be heard in DC. So some tools are coming, and the question is now, do we have the will? Will we take the time to use some of those tools that are in place?
Yeah, Mark.
Once one stops genocide, what's the next step?
I think Rwanda is giving us fabulous examples of what that next step is. It's the 9th fastest growing economy in the world right now, low corruption rate, near a city of nearly 2 million, and a mugging is nearly unheard of. It's rare, in the city, much less a murder. And what is that, I think, been built on has been restoring the judicial system. That's been a very huge part. And Rwanda said, and I know this might not be a typical answer to a question, what do we do after genocide? But one of the smart things that Rwanda did was in their new constitution, they said 30% of our decision makers in government will be women. And so as a result, 56% of the seats in parliament are held by women in Rwanda. And that role of women, that voice of a mother that says, it's going to be all right, I'm not going anywhere, we're going to make it, is translating into huge both economic boom and accountability in government and a decentralization of government that's happening. In Rwanda, the leadership of President Kagame is telling the people, look, this is your country. The answers to the problems are in your hands, not from somebody outside. Partners from outside, absolutely, really valuable. But the real final solution for our troubles here are in the hands of you, the people. So one of the things the government does is gets the spending decisions closer and closer to the grassroots level, not in the 5 provincial levels, but down at the 30 district levels, and not satisfied with that, on down to the 400 and some sector levels. So I think that sense among the people that you are the solution is a huge part to recovering from genocide. And we could talk, too, about the Gacaca, and about the confession of the perpetrators, and a lot of programs that have been put in place in Rwanda by the government, by churches, nonprofit organizations, and even local community groups. But I think, a justice system, I think the role of women playing in the new government, and a sense of this is our country, our fate is in our hands, are 3 key things that we're seeing modeled in Rwanda.
Carl, what do the children understand about what happened?
Really good question. I was in Rwanda in January with a group of theater students from Buffalo State College, and at the end of the visit, I got an email from a 19-year-old young man in Rwanda. He says, could I meet with you, before you? And I was just about to fly out, and actually, about 2 hours before I flew out, we met for a while. Sharp kid, and he's like, I was just born at the time of the genocide, and I do ask my parents and I ask others, but, just like any place in the world, some people are really reticent to talk about it. Others are more willing. He says, you were here. Tell me, there's this there's this hunger among the young people, especially, at college age, as they're beginning to wrestle with different things of their past and what's in the future. And while the education program is working on helping inform them, Kigali Genocide Memorial, Kigali Genocide Center has a fantastic exhibit, and they bring students in every week through there with Aegis Trust and collaboration with the Kigali Genocide Center. And I was just on a conference call 2 nights ago with a group of teachers here in America who are working to facilitate, to help the Rwandan teachers in how to go about teaching about the genocide. But, even though it's 19 years ago, super sensitive when every kid in your classroom is either related to someone who died or someone who did the killing. And so one of the ways that it's been approached in Rwanda is, let's learn about the Holocaust. And as we learn about the Holocaust, it's not the genocide right there, your genocide in your face, but it's this event that happened years ago, but all of a sudden you begin to see these parallels. And so efforts are definitely being made, intentional efforts, both formally for kids and then the young people themselves. I'll get emails pretty much several times a month from some other young person in Rwanda thanking me for staying there, which, is really nice email to receive, but then asking the questions, and they're beginning to tell their stories through films and through, books, and so that's a great opportunity to partner with the people of Rwanda to help them share their stories with the rest of the world. And we can do that on Facebook and so many other ways.
We're going to need to take a short break here in a minute, but after our break, Carl, I'd love for you to talk about what it is that you teach about the Holocaust specifically. What resonates with the people in Rwanda? What resonates with these students who are wanting to learn about their own genocides in Africa? You and I both work in dealing with Sudan also, and the genocide that's ongoing in the Nuba Mountains and genocide in Darfur. I think it's important for us to get into that. What can we learn from the Holocaust, and what really helps teaching people to stop it from happening again? We'll talk about that after a short break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Shalom. Welcome to Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman. I'm joined in the studio by Mark Finkelstein of the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines, and we're joined by Skype by Carl Wilkins. Before we continue our conversation, I'd like to thank our benefactor, our sponsor for this show, Dr. Ronald Bergman of Bergman Folkers Cosmetic Surgery and Spa, for his all his support of this show and what we do, enabling us to have wonderful guests on our show and to have this great studio and this opportunity to share with you thoughts from wonderful people like Carl Wilkins. So, Carl, I asked before the break about the Holocaust and what you teach and what you think it's important for the students to understand and what they find important in their own understanding. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit actually, only because I haven't been in the classrooms that much in Rwanda. You know, so what I'll share with you is kind of secondhand from talking with teachers who are there, and then a few experience that I've had. I mean, I remember particularly one day I was with some elementary school teachers in Rwanda. One of these ladies had been teaching for 40 years. So when you think about that, back up 40 years, 1962, boy, that's right at the time Rwanda got independence. So imagine all things that this primary school teacher in Rwanda had seen in her life, the violence that had happened in Rwanda in the late 50s and into the 60s, again, against Tutsi people. All these things she had witnessed, and each day, you know, she's going to her simple little African classroom teaching. And as we talked with her about the Holocaust, because she had learned about it over her career and stuff as a teacher in Rwanda, I think one of the things that was really important was that the people in Rwanda learned that they're not alone, and people have had a life after something as terrible as this. Because, you know, when you survive and you lose, you know, so much, if not all of your family, what's the point of living? Many people ask, you know. And so for them to see the stories and to see how the survivors of the Holocaust have gone on to develop GPS systems and to have lives and to also be part of education to build peace in the world, I think that after has been a huge encouragement for the people of Rwanda who are looking at that after. I think that also, you know, there was a big connection, you know, understanding that this idea of hatred and us and them, you know, is not unique to Rwanda. Rwanda is not some cursed population group, but this is a human problem all around the world. The idea that my world would be better without you in it. And so, you know, connecting with a government that was going, you know, sponsored executions, Holocaust, Rwanda, they draw the parallels, you know, all over the place, as well as there, you know, that there are many differences. But I think just that sense of we're not alone, and there is hope afterwards, and, you know, we can join in the core of people who are working to make this a genocide-free world. You know, those are some of the things that I hear and heard. I wish I could show you this beautiful lady's face. She must have been, you know, into her 60s, still teaching school in Rwanda. And I'm thinking, boy, the world needs to hear from this lady. And I'm sure she'd love to sit down, well, like we did with the teachers' conference, with a Holocaust survivor. And you should have seen the Rwandan students. It was a Skype, and they were coming up to the flat screen TV and asking their questions of this lady, and, you know, and seeing just, wow, how much they shared in common with this lady, you know, Skyping from Washington, D.C., who had survived Auschwitz.
Now, do they have some sort of museum kind of thing for the Rwandan genocide that highlights individual actions? I mean, I found kind of the individual stories are so important.
Yeah. Huge. You know, if you go online to Kigali Genocide Center or Kigali Genocide Memorial, you will find a great website, a link to their main museum education center to the genocide in Kigali. And then throughout the country, there are both just physical memorials, like, you know, all of the mass graves and things like that. But then there's other memorials, educational memorials. Murambi is a very powerful one. That's a very how can I say, provocative. It causes a lot of discussion because they've actually preserved some of the remains there, and so no, they're making efforts. Churches that have had slaughters happen in them, you know, they've respectfully buried the bones at these churches, but one of the churches, all of the benches that served as pews are covered still with the clothing of the people who lost their lives there. So, no, these memorials are available all around the country. And I mean, you asked about the kids, you know, and what they know about it. I remember visiting the church there, and there's with the clothes and the mass graves, and outside, walking right past it every day, two precious little first graders, hand in hand in their sharp little school uniform. You know, they walk past this church every day on their way to school. So in many ways, they know about it as a part of life. And then in other ways, though, the question is always why, how, and you know, unpacking those questions are the big challenges.
Carl, what type of mental health services are available to people there?
A wide spectrum. I mean, you know, people have come in from the West wanting to help with many good intentions, and sometimes, you know, it's helped and sometimes it hasn't. I can't really speak in detail from experience to the mental health that's provided both, you know, from the government level and the nonprofit organizations. What I can speak more to is the type of mental health treatment that happens in everyday life in Rwanda. And what I mean by that is, you know, in many Western countries, when a tragedy happens, our home is broken into, somebody is killed, we have the luxury, at least the choice, to move to another house, perhaps even to another town or another country. In Rwanda, the people don't have that luxury. And so they have to, just because of poverty and other challenges, they have to deal with this. And for example, your neighbor, she may be taking food to her husband who's in prison because of genocide, and she might ask you to watch over her kids. And you're like, you know, you're maybe a survivor. You don't want anything to do with this family and what they took from you, and it could just overwhelm you. But then you look at the kids and you go, wow, you know, sure, I'll watch your kids. What did they have to do with this? And that whole idea of for our children has been a strong factor in Rwanda in forcing, I guess you could say in many ways, people to learn how to live together again. And in that learning how to live together again, I think they are finding healing in their heads and in their hearts. They're beginning to redefine people, not just as killers, but again, as neighbors, as a co-worker in the rice cooperative. You know, I might not want to work alongside, I may not want to hoe alongside this person, but for the sake of my family, for, you know, get a school uniform for my kids, we've got to do this. And so I think that kind of forced by life and necessity, sharing of whether it's gardens or, you know, somebody has one solar panel and everybody's sharing off of it to charge their cell phone. That daily living together, I think, is bringing some healing. But you know, for those of us who don't speak Kinyarwanda, aren't living there today, we really only have a tiny glimpse of still the huge amount of healing that I'm sure still needs to take place. And so, you know, I'm a big believer in the power of stories. And again, I would make the appeal that we can partner with the Rwandans to help them tell their stories. And as they tell their stories, you know, I just don't know so much about formal part of mental health, but I think the practical day-to-day, helping people tell their stories, listening, letting them know their stories are important. For me, that's been an important part of my healing.
When we talk about the Holocaust and we go through the museum, one of the major mottos of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum is what you do matters. And what you do as an individual matters. And in the Jewish tradition, we talk about tikkun olam and repair of the world. But for me, the statement, the two statements that really stand out when we're talking about dealing with these kind of issues, these overwhelming issues, is one, you can't stand idly by. the blood of your neighbor, and the other one is while you can't finish the work, neither can you desist from it. If the task is so large that you say, how can I possibly do all of this? You still can't avoid doing something because your individual action matters. And so I try to teach people that they need to do something. They can't just do nothing. And so my question is, when we're dealing with not only individuals, but we're dealing with governments, what could the governments have done that would have made a difference? And what can they do, say, in dealing with Nuba Mountains and Blue Nile and Darfur, that can make a difference? Samantha Power, I know you know this, Samantha Power said basically, here's a whole long list of why the United States has never done anything about genocide, and it doesn't look like we're going to do anything about it anytime soon either. What do we need to do to have happen, in your mind, to get action?
You know, I think I'd like to take the two parts. You're talking about the personal part and the government part, and see how those two parts actually fit together. How can we rehumanize the government? There's a great campaign I just caught on to that was from last year, where a graphic designer in Israel said, you know, we're about to go to war for 10 years now with Iran. I got to do something. And he made this poster. So you Google Iran, we love you, we will not bomb you. And you had a people's response to what's going on between their two countries. And all of a sudden, a people's movement started on the grassroots level, connecting people from Israel with people from Iran. You know, they said, we want to have coffee. Well, it's kind of hard, so they took two pictures facing each other on Facebook of having, you know, a cup of coffee and this guy with a cup of coffee, and those are just some visual images. But I thought to myself, can this man from Israel actually tell the people in Iran, we will not bomb you? And if somebody does bomb Iran, or Iran bombs Israel, is that the people's action? Is that the government? I think we've had for too long a huge separation between the idea of, well, the government should do this, and, well, what should we as individuals do? And we've got to find a way that those two come together. And I think that that some specifics that could have happened in Rwanda, for example, that could have been people grassroots driven, would have been say, another radio station during the time of the Rwandan genocide. They argued over the technicalities of blocking the hate radio, which in Rwanda was huge for carrying out the genocide. I mean, logistically, we haven't seen, say, you know, Bill Smith lately, but somebody thinks they saw him down by the 7-Eleven on the corner of Elm and 2nd, and his license plate number is this. I mean, the radio was so specific in carrying out the genocide. And so while we're arguing about the freedom of speech and blocking that hate radio in the country, what about broadcasting another radio? Right now, we're seeing how cell phones, in every picture you see, whether it's in the Middle East or Africa or wherever, where there's trouble, you see somebody who's holding up their cell phone, you know, and they're taking a picture of this. And so I think we can connect more with our governments. Guy in Kenya wrote a software program before these most recent elections, preparing in case there was violence, that they'd be able to take all the influx of text messages from different parts of the country and be able to respond. So I'm talking a lot of different ideas here, but I think, you know, the principle I would like to see happen would be engaging a sense of ownership that a government is really me. And that I can, through, you know, here in America, build a relationship with our senators, with our representatives. Actually, we probably won't build a relationship directly with them, but we can build a relationship with their staff, with their legislative assistant for foreign affairs, that 28-year-old young lady who's passionate about changing the world. You know, we can build those relationships with them, and then, you know, we'll see, as I said earlier, who's the economic partners? Who's the political, cultural, you know, partners here? Military partners, and how can we encourage them, you know, to use their influence to diffuse or bring peace to an area?
Whatever. We have to take a short break, and after our break, I think we'll give you a few minutes to just give us what you want us to take away from this. what your advice that we should keep in our hearts. And
Sure.
So we'll be back in just a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Shalom. Welcome back to Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman. I'm joined in the studio by Mark Finkelstein, and we're joined by Skype by Carl Wilkins, who has been sharing his stories with us and educating us on what he believes will help make the world a better place, basically. I'm sitting here looking at a screen in our studio, Carl, I have to tell you, and right above the screen it says it's a God thing. And, I think, speaking as a rabbi to a minister here, a lot of this work that we do, and I think the work we do in our personal lives and the work we do in anti-genocide and other things is about that. It's motivated by making the world a better place and seeing kind of a bigger picture. I kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to give us a little bit of advice from your perspective, not only about how to combat genocide, but one of the big things I see on your website is this idea of reaching out to the other, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to say a few words about that as well.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. When this morning I'll be in some classrooms here, and last night was others, and I always share this story about these Rwandan women who came and stood in front of our gate the second night of the genocide and stopped the killers from coming into our house. Not that we were particularly targeted, but in the chaos they were doing whatever they wanted. And these ladies were only armed with stories. They weren't armed with machetes or guns. They just simply told them stories about our family, our kids playing with their kids. And I've become very passionate about the power of stories to build peace. And stories, we hope, will always inspire people to action. And action has this way of empowering stories. If we don't have the stories, the action becomes duty, it becomes drudgery, and we get burned out. And yet if we only do stories and there's no action, they become meaningless. And so when people ask, what can we do? I'm always saying we've got to learn the story, learn the backstory, and say, well, it's so complex. Sure, life's complex, but learn the story of an individual, and then of another individual, and another individual. And those stories are often right next door. It may be a refugee family from Somalia, or it may be a professor who is from West Africa. The stories are all around us besides being on the web. And learning the story also takes the ability to listen without an agenda, not learning the story so I convince you or promote my agenda, but just simply listening, learning the story for the value of the story. And then as we do, I think the opportunities will come along that we can partner with the people as we're learning their stories. Not do stuff for people, but with people, partner, and especially in international situations, they have to take the lead. And so I don't believe that people don't care. I really don't. I believe that we're wired to care. The problem is we don't always have the tools. We don't know how to care. You know, somebody's broken on the side of the road. Well, I can help them change a tire, you know, or I got my cell phone. I can call and get some help. But in genocide, we're like, what do we do? And so I say, start simple. Stories of individuals. And then as we learn their story, how can we partner? You know, maybe our passion is soccer. I just met a couple of weeks ago with a couple, IACT. And if you look on web or on the YouTube, you'll see Darfur United. It's a football league that has been started among the refugee camps. Now, it's crazy that the thing should go on so long that a football league would start there, but at the same time, the effects of this football league in restoring a sense of unity among the people and getting people in America who never would be involved with genocide, or not because they don't care, just that their circles don't intersect. But then all of a sudden, soccer, football comes, well, wherever country you're in, soccer comes into the picture, and all of a sudden their circles begin to intersect, you know. Or we've got this great project coming in June in D.C. where we're going to be laying down 1 million bones. You look up the 1 Million Bones Project, and you see how artists are coming together to respond against genocide. And the list could go on. You know, that theater group I took to Rwanda this summer, from the group of students from Buffalo State College, they're writing a play this semester based on their 2-week visit in Rwanda. And so again, they're engaging theater in the storytelling. So whatever our passions are, dance. Another friend has started a dance school in Rwanda. She, you know, where our passion, our gifts are, and where a great need of the world that touches our heart is, and where those two intersect, that's where we want to be. That's where we want to live.
This is wonderful, Carl. Thank you for joining us this morning and sharing all of your stories. I'm really looking forward to having you come to my congregation, Temple B'nai Jeshurun in Des Moines, 5101 Grand Avenue, April 20th. Carl will be speaking at 7:30. All are invited, and it really is heartwarming to hear, and inspiring to hear your stories, not only of what you did, but what other people do when they're faced with real difficulty. I'm going to be leaving in a few minutes the studio here to go back to my congregation, where I'm teaching a class on anti-Semitism, the history of anti-Semitism, and going through tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. It's difficult to confront it constantly, but you know, part of why I think you and I both do this work is because we want the answer to be never again. We want there to be a stopping of this kind of action against people, and this kind of hatred, and to promote understanding between people, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and people from Africa, of different tribes, different ethnicities. We want everybody to be able to interact, because there is a common humanity that we need to stress, and when we can interact on that personal level, things change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. This has been Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, and I look forward to seeing you next week.